That brings us into our second segment, which is going to be the SheBelieves Cup final standings and results. Sadly, the SheBelieves Cup has come to a close. Teardrop. I know, I'm really bummed too because it was really exciting to see the U.S. Women's National Team back in action in tournament play again. It's been a long time since that happened with the pandemic going on and everything, and who knows what's going to go on for the Tokyo Olympics this summer. Cross my fingers that hopefully they'll be able to get it done and safely as well. But in case you haven't been able to keep up on the SheBelieves Cup matches, here are all the results from the entire tournament, starting with match day 1. Brazil beat Argentina by a scoreline of 4-1. I can't remember who all scored for that, and I totally forgot to write it down besides Marta and Dabinia. 2 other players scored besides that, but that's a knock on me. Sorry about that, guys. Moving on to the second match of that day, we had the United States taking on Canada. The United States bested Canada by a scoreline of 1-0. Roosevelt came to the rescue in the 79th minute off of a set piece that bounced off of Lindsey Horan and dropped to Rose, who finished it with grace. Moving on to match day 2, the United States bested Brazil by a scoreline of 2-0 as well. Kristen Press scored early on in the 11th minute, while Megan Rapinoe finished it off in the 88th minute with a nice celebration as an ode to Ashlyn Harris and Allie Krieger and their newborn Sloan Phillips Harris Krieger as she got in front of the camera and started rocking her arms back and forth like this. Check it out on YouTube. Really cool stuff. The second match of that day was Canada and Argentina. Canada bested Argentina by a scoreline of 1-0. None other than Sarah Strategakis. I'm going to butcher that name like a million times. I feel like I already have a lot, so forgive me if I have. But Sarah Strategakis scored her first international goal for Canada to win this one in stoppage time. That's right. She scored it in the 92nd minute to win it over Argentina. So what a game that was. Really interesting result, too, considering how well Canada played against the U.S. I thought they were going to crush Argentina that next game, but hey, that's football, right? Moving on to match day 3, which is the final match day that took place on Wednesday. Brazil took on Canada and beat them by a scoreline of 2-0. None other than Dabinia and Julie Bianchi scored for Brazil to secure the second place spot. Then the United States took on Argentina and bested them by a scoreline of 6-0. This game was not even close. So it was good for U.S. National Team fans, but for Argentina fans, not so much. Megan Rapinoe had a brace. Carly Lloyd got on the scoreboard as well as with an assist. Alex Morgan scored her first goal for 2021 since she returned from her pregnancy. Kristen Press and Christy Mewis scored as well. So a whole ton of players got onto the score sheet and also on the assist sheet that game. And it was a ton of fun to watch as a U.S. fan. But how did the table end up figuring out by the time the tournament was all said and done? The United States took home the gold and won the tournament for the second year in a row. They're the first team in SheBelieves Cup history to do so. They won all 3 games and did not concede a goal. They had 9 goals that they scored while conceding none. In second place, we had Brazil, who won 2 games and lost 1. They finished with 6 points, positive goal difference of 3. Then in third place, we had Canada, who won 1 match and lost 2. They had a goal difference of -2. And then in last, Argentina, who lost all 3 games, unfortunately had a goal difference of -10. So what are some awards from the tournament and my overall thoughts? Roosevelt came out as MVP of the tournament, and the United States, like I said earlier, came out as champions. I'm not really too surprised at how the table turned out. In fact, the table turned out exactly like I predicted. The U.S. Took the tournament by storm and won it as much as everybody expected. They have been on fire for 2021. They haven't lost yet. Vlatko is now 16-0-0 in all of his competitions, which is the best start to a tenure in U.S. history. So there's that as well. Good on Vlatko. I had a feeling that the U.S. would run into trouble along the way, and they certainly did. They had their rocky bumps, but still, for them to struggle like they did and still give up no goals, that's amazing. It just shows the standard of how the U.S. is viewed in terms of the women's soccer. So really good on the U.S. for winning the tournament. Brazil, they performed very well and they stuck to their DNA. Their DNA to me has always been attack, 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 and they did it really well. They scored a lot of goals and they won a few games. I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in the future. They've got, I think, a top 10 player in the world in Dabinia, and I would argue Marta's top 20 in the world still, despite that she's getting toward the twilight of her career. But they've got a lot of young talent and a lot of promise in their squad, so I anticipate they're going to start climbing up the FIFA World Rankings in years to come. Moving on to Canada a little bit, they had some good and some bad. I think their best performance all tournament long, despite that they lost, was against the U.S. They came into this tournament with a ton of injuries. The expectations were pretty low for them, I think, especially when you're losing out on the world's most prolific goal scorer in Christine Sinclair. So I think Canada coped well with that overall. They had a great performance against the U.S. They played, I thought, pretty poorly against Brazil. There were a couple goals that they gave up that they had many opportunities to clear the ball, and they would either not clear or clear toward the center, both of which you should not do as a defender, and they paid the price for it. So, a bright spot, Stephanie LeBay, I thought, did really well as a keeper, especially since in the first game, Kaylin Sheridan exited really early. I believe it was in the 16th minute against the U.S. with an injury. She came in cold, and she played really well all tournament long, so good on them for that. I think the future is going to be bright for Canada. They're a top 10 team in the world as of right now, according to the FIFA rankings, and I think they'll get better and better. They're a young squad. For them, it was just a lot of injuries this tournament, which happens, especially when you're coming off a really long spell of not playing a ton of matches. And then last but not least, Argentina. They did not have a good tournament. They lost all 3 matches. I don't think did they score a goal? They scored 1 goal all tournament, unfortunately. That's just kind of how the cookie crumbles. I don't think it's as much of an issue as with the playing pool talent that they have in Argentina as I think it is with their federation. Their federation has had a lot of problems with their players. Some of Argentina's best players have refused to represent the country because of the federation. And there's just so much more that they could do, and that's just not happening. So I'm not surprised that they took last, but it's good that they got some games under the belt, considering they haven't met much as a team over the last 18 months. So that about does it for all the SheBelieves Cup recap, guys. What did you think of the tournament? Were you surprised at any of the results? Feel free to jump down in the comments below and let me know what you thought about it.